This is an oral history interview with Lodoska Strawn in her room on September 16, 1982. The interviewer is Susan Gortner. Mrs. Strawn, where was your father born?
In Vermont.
And your mother?
In Ohio.
In
Ohio.
And what were their names?
Well, he was Charles Watts. Charles. I'm not sure about the middle name. Watts. And she was Alice Searle.
What type of work did your father do?
He clerked in the only dry goods store there was in this town from the time he was a young man before he and mother were married.
When did your father come here?
When he was a baby. He came here from Ohio, no, Vermont. His mother went to Vermont from here to have that baby at her mother's insistence. And I'm going to waste a lot of time.
That's okay. Hi, Sue.
Mother went all the way to Vermont from here. I was born in Monticello. No, I was born in Monticello, not my father. But I'm afraid I'm going to close down.
Oh, okay. Do you happen to know how long your parents went to school?
Dad was a graduate from high school here. And that was something in that day. And mother, I don't know where she jumped off the wagon. She lived with her brother here. W.E. Smith was her brother, and she lived with him.
When did your mother come to Illinois? You said she was born in Ohio.
Well, she was just a girl when she came to Illinois, but she was older than mother was. I think she probably was in her teens when she came.
Do you know what the origin of your last name is? What country?
Yes, that's the story. My grandmother was a big baby, not a tiny baby. When she got her name, she was so old that this young man who came to work for her father, who was a farmer in Vermont, and she I searching for mother's age when she came to Illinois. I think she was in her early teens. But I'm not sure about that.
You were telling us about the origin of your last name.
Oh. Of my first name.
No, do you know what country your ancestors came from? The origin of your maiden name was?
No, I think they were English, but I'm not sure. My dad's name was Watts to start with, and mother's was Searle, Searle.
Do you happen to know when your first ancestors settled in the United States?
No, I don't. I have relatives who've traced it down, and I could be a certified American.
Did your mother ever work outside the home?
No, I don't think so. Although she did some sewing in her homes for others. Not a great deal, but a little.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had 2 brothers and 1 sister who is still living, and she lives in Florida.
Were you the oldest or the youngest or in the middle?
I was midway. I was the second. I had an older brother. He's been gone years.
Did anyone ever live with your family besides your brothers and sisters?
Yes, several times. Mother had a roomer who lived in a room that we weren't very using, and one of them was assistant county treasurer.
Do you recall the name?
Vern Purcell. You'll run across that name quite frequently.
Did he live with your family quite a while?
Yes, he did. Several years.
Did you ever have any of your grandparents live with you?
Yes, grandmother Watts lived with us for quite some time. We had a downstairs bedroom that was hers when she wanted it.
You were born in Monticello.
I was born at an early age and lived there until I was married the second time. That first marriage ended in death. And
Where did your parents live in Monticello when you were young and growing up?
at 494. I can't think of the name of the street. Elm Boulevard.
What school did you go to then?
I went through the Monticello grade schools. I went part of the time to it was called just the North School then. And
What's Washington School today?
and then I went, when I outgrew that school, I went to the South School, as we call it, which is Lincoln.
How many kids were in your class?
I can't tell you that. There was quite a group of us, a room full of 8th graders who went into it.
What was your favorite subject?
Oh, I like English and Latin. And I liked all of them except math. And I didn't care particularly for that.
Did you carry your lunch to school?
Part of the time. When I lived on the south side, I carried it. And
how did you happen to, you have an interesting first name. How did you happen to get that name?
I started to tell you that a while ago. Well, grandfather was a farmer in the country in Montness, Vermont. And this young man came to the door and wanted to work as a farmhand. And grandfather hired him. And he hadn't been there very long before he began to stew because I didn't have a given name. I was just baby. And grandmother's name came out of his head. It was his sister's name. And he was a Russian immigrant. And come to find out, he was of the Russian nobility who had anchored the old Tsar and had to get out of the country. He did it in protecting a peasant. And so it was a noble woman's name.
Well, that's an interesting way to receive a name and quite an honor.
It's what I didn't appreciate very much because it was so hard to pronounce.
How did they come to call you Dottie?
Mother had already named me that before my grandmother came up to see the baby. and she was disappointed that the baby didn't have any name other than that. So they gave me my grandmother's name, which was Lodoska, and she had gotten her name because it's farmhand, which her grandfather had.
Mm-hmm. You said that your father worked in a dry goods store.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of the store?
W.E. Smith. And
where was it located?
on the south side of the square. He built that building that's there now. The big part of the building was his building. And he worked there for years.
What was his job there?
Clerk. He sold yard goods and anything that they had to sell in the store.
What type of other things did they sell?
All kinds of dress materials. And in later years, after I came along, they had ready-made dresses, but they didn't earlier because they didn't make ready-made dresses then.
Did you ever help your father in the store?
Yes, I did. A time or two.
What did you do?
I was clerk.
Clerk. Now, how far in school did you go?
I went through, almost through high school, the 4 years of high school. And I decided I wasn't going ahead to finish and quit.
What did you do when you got out of school?
Oh, nothing for some time. And then after a short time, I worked in the bakery as a clerk.
Uh-huh. Where was the bakery located?
On the south side, the east side of the square, in a building which is no longer there.
What was it called?
I don't remember.
Do you recall who was your boss? Who owned it?
No, I don't.
When you were a child and growing up, did you ever earn money for any of the jobs you did, like helping your father in the store or other things?
I always got paid.
Uh-huh. What did you do with your money?
Spent it for clothes.
Did you have to buy most of your own clothing?
No.
You just bought special things?
Mm-hmm.
How did you meet your husband?
Which one?
Your first one.
Going to school.
Here in Monticello?
Yes. And I married him when I was 18, almost as soon as I could.
Mm-hmm. Do you happen to recall your first date?
No, I don't.
What was your wedding like?
Very simple. It was the minister in the home, our home, and
have a fancy dress?
Oh, yes, but not like today.
What was it like?
It was blue. I forget the material. It was a satin finish material with a white figure. And
did you and your husband have a very long courtship?
quite a while.
What kind of things did you do when he came courting?
Oh, we went on sleigh rides, box sleds, and we didn't go to many movies then. Wasn't much to go to see.
Did they ever have any park concerts or anything like that?
Yes, they had band concerts that were quite well attended.
Where did they hold the band concerts?
Down on the square, put up a square platform for the band to sit on, and they made good music.
What type of movies did they have? Were they the silent movies then?
The early ones that we had were, we didn't have any movies for some time.
When you and your husband, after you were married, where did you live?
On Center Street, there in Monticello.
What was your husband's name?
Will McClure, William.
And was he born here?
Yes, he was born here, lived here until he died.
Where did he work?
In a clothes store.
What was the name of that store?
I don't remember.
Did he work there very long?
Yes, quite a while.
Then what did he do?
Well, at one time he was chauffeur for L&F Moore, who was the big gun in that day. His home is still on Washington Street. And
What did you say his name was?
L&F Moore.
Moore. What did he do? How did he make his money?
Sarah Pepsin. That was the early days of Sarah Pepsin.
So your husband was his chauffeur for a while. Then what did he do?
Well, he worked for W.F. Lodge for a short time and then went out to work on the farm where that his father and mother owned.
Where was the farm located?
Southeast of Monticello.
Did you live out on the farm or did you live in town?
Lived on the farm.
Was your husband in World War I?
Yeah, no, he wasn't. He wasn't in any war.
What year did you marry?
1908.
How many children did you and your husband have?
3. One was stillborn, and I had 2 daughters who grew up to be quite some girls. And
what are their names?
Mary Alice, her last name was McClure, and then she married.
And what was the other girl's name?
Catherine Louise. And they were both graduates from high school. And
was your husband a high school graduate also?
yes, I think he was. No, he graduated from a country school.
Well, he went to school in the country. Do you recall which one? Were your children born on the farm?
No, they were born in Monticello.
In your home?
Mm-hmm.
Were your children still at home with you when you moved out to the farm?
Yes, they were still at home until they graduated from high school. And then they went to Champaign to live.
What church did you attend in Monticello?
Well, I attended Methodist at first, and then I went over to the Presbyterian, and I married a Presbyterian.
Maybe I didn't.
We were members of the Methodist Presbyterian Church.
How many people were in the congregation about the time you and your husband were married?
I don't know. It wasn't as big as it is now. It's had an addition put on.
Did they have 2 church services a day on Sunday?
Yes,
And one on Wednesday?
yes,
Did you attend all of them?
not always.
What kind of socials did the church have?
Only usual run of church socials.
Did you go to quilting bees?
A time or two. And I don't think my quilt ever took first prize.
Okay. Did you belong to any other organizations in Monticello?
Yes, I'm rather proud of the work that I did for the Tuberculosis Association. I worked 4 years.
Can you tell us what that involved?
Calling on these people who had TB. I had a slight touch of it myself, so I knew what they needed to do.
When did you have it?
I don't remember.
About how old were you?
Oh, I was under. I had it after I was married.
Were you able to be treated at home?
No, I was treated in 2 different hospitals. One was in Springfield. It was the first and the best, the one that I went to. And I went then.
Wait a second. Oh, okay, you went to the hospital in Springfield?
And one in, I forget the name of the town, southwest of Chicago. It was a large institution and noted for their exercise program. And we walked by the clock.
How long were you in the hospital in Springfield?
1 day, less than a year.
That was and this was while you were married. Was this before you had children?
Yes. It was after my husband's death.
Oh, this was after your husband.
And
What kind of treatment did they give you in Springfield?
rest.
Rest.
And good food. And they didn't get the kind of food we get today here.
And then you moved to the hospital in Chicago.
That's the one that was near Chicago.
How long were you there?
I forget. 3 months, I'd say.
And you did. Tell us about the program they had you on there.
Walking by the clock, and they timed us, and we walked. We kept going. The time we were supposed to be going, and no longer. And
Do you have any idea how long you walked every day?
different times depended on the weather and how long we'd been exercising. On an exercise program, I was walking an hour before I stopped, and I stopped when they sent me home.
When did your first husband die?
I can't tell you that.
After his death, then that's when you had TB. Then what did you do? You said you helped with the TB organization. What did you do for them?
I did public health work with their patients. And we had a very active tuberculosis association at that time. They took care of the patients watched after them closely. And
Were there quite a few people with tuberculosis in the area?
well, for a small county, perhaps it was quite a few. I don't remember how many.
Did you remain living out on the farm, or did you come back to town?
Oh, I came back to town right away after my husband's death out there. His folks had moved into town, and we were farming the place. And
What caused his death?
encephalitis. I think it was what it was called. It was,
Were your daughters grown at that point?
no, they were, Mary was in high school, and Catherine was in grade school.
Who took care of them while you were in the hospital?
My parents in Wills. And then when I got out, able to be present, and have the care of a child.
Did you have a job then?
Yes, I did. I was called county nurse, but I wasn't a nurse. But I had this life for a year in a sanitarium, which gave me a knowledge of what should be done. And I'd like to get my second husband name in this, more Strawn. And he was a traveling salesman.
Is that how you met him?
No, I met him in school.
Oh, he was from Monticello also? Was he born here?
Yeah. No, he was born near Saragorda in the country.
Was he married before he married you also? He had waited for you all that time.
I guess so.
During World War I, was it, where were you you were married to your first husband at that time, during World War I?
No, I wasn't married until after the war.
Was it very difficult raising a family during the Depression?
You don't know the half of it.
What was it like?
Doing without necessities, what we consider necessities today.
Where were you living during the Depression?
a little house out on I was going to tell you the street here in town, but I can't think of it.
And now, was that when you were married to your first husband?
I was married to my second husband.
What year did you marry him?
You gotta sit one place or the other, don't you?
I can't remember.
How did you happen to get reacquainted with him?
Well, he came to see me, and we had been good friends all through high school. And after he was out of high school,
What did you said he was a salesman. What did he sell?
groceries, good sellable product.
Did he sell them to the grocery stores in town?
Mhm.
Where were the grocery stores located?
One on the southeast corner of the square. One on the east side of the square. One on the north side of the square. And one on the west side.
So they were all on all four sides. Do you recall the names of any of them?
Yes. H.J. Evans. I'm wasting time.
Did you ever ride the Interurban?
Yes, I did.
Where did you go?
Champaign, Decatur.
How long did it take?
Oh, less than an hour. Half an hour. More like it.
Do you recall how much it cost?
No.
No. Did the train usually consist of just one car?
Yes.
What did you think when the banks closed during the Depression?
Well, that was a rough time.
Did you lose any money?
Not very much, because we never had very much in the bank to lose. But less than $100.
Did both banks close?
Yes. Which bank did we? I have ours. I can't think of the name of the bank.
Did your husband continue as a salesman?
Until the Depression. And then the grocery store, the big wholesale grocery store, just went out of business. And there wasn't any other work for him to do. So he got a job with Alan Moore, and he worked for him several years. I don't know.
He worked where?
For Evans.
What did he do?
Grab a hold now.
Well, he sold groceries.
It was a grocery store then.
He didn't work in the grocery store. He worked out of the wholesale house. Traveled. He had a certain territory that he made every 2 weeks.
What was his territory?
Oh, here, let me finish the rest.
Champaign County and
Oh, wait.
Pike County, parts of them.
Do you recall the rationing? What was rationing like during World War I and II?
It was going without everything except just necessity.
What type of things were rationed?
Everything nearly was rationed. Just depended on how much income you could have, how much you could buy.
When did you have your first radio?
That was in the late 1900s.
What type of programs did you listen to?
Oh, whatever was showing.
What did you think of the first car that you saw?
Well, I thought that was something. And I had a ride in that first car. It belonged to George Moore, the brother of Alan. Small. And I went for a ride in it just because my schoolmates were going, and he was kind enough to take as many as the car to hold.
Were you afraid of him?
Hmm.
What kind of car did you and your husband have?
We didn't have any for a long time, and the first one was the Ford. And I think the second or third one may have been Chevrolets.
Did you ever see any of the women that we call suffragettes that were trying to get the women's voting?
Not much of that. There wasn't any strong movement for it here.
Do you remember voting in your first election?
Yes,
How did you feel about it?
I thought I was something voting.
What president do you remember most vividly?
Why? I'd hate to say which one.
What did you think of Franklin Roosevelt?
I liked him very much.
Where were you when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
I was in Texas. It was after my husband had gone to work in Texas,
What was he doing in Texas?
working for a company that had him selling
Yeah, I'll take it.
on the road.
How long did you live in Texas?
22 years.
When did you move down there?
I don't remember.
And your husband worked as a salesman while you were in Texas?
Yes, he did.
Where else have you lived?
I lived in Florida. After my husband's death, I had a sister, a daughter that lived in Florida, and I went down there and had an apartment on the backside of her yard, and that was the easiest life I ever had.
When did you move back to Monticello?
After my younger daughter's death. That was I can't tell what year.
It's been very nice talking to you. Oh, I've enjoyed it, and I thank you.
Well, you're welcome.